Route 1 Pokémon, some of the weakest Pokémon in any game. And I have set myself the goal to prove how strong they can truly be, by setting out to complete Pokémon Violet with only using Route 1 Pokémon. Now this is the third and final part of this challenge, so if you want to watch the first two parts there is a link in the description below, but without further ado, let's jump right back into the run. Now we have all 18 badges, it's time to start closing off the different story arcs. First off is the Path of Legends. To finish this story arc we have to return to Pokeo Path where we first met Arvin at the start of the game. Here we enter Professor Turo's lab underneath the lighthouse. We are once again contacted by Professor Turo, who is currently inside Area 0, and has requested us to join him down there to help out with a problem that has occurred. Before we are able to make our way there, we first have to defeat Irvin in a Pokemon battle to prove that we are strong enough to survive. And well, as it stands, we are not, losing over and over again to his team, only making slight progress each battle. Since the only thing we can do to improve our strength is level up, our team is raised to level 90 before our successful attempt. The fight starts off with Greedent vs Charger. An X-Scissor from Charger deals about a third of their health, and we are then hit by a follow-up of a Body Slam, dealing just under half of Charger's health and unfortunately does inflict paralysation. Luckily Charger does still outspeed and fights through the paralysis, taking down Greedent with just another X-Scissor. Scorvillain is their next Pokemon out, who outspeeds and finishes off Charger with a Fire Blast. To take revenge, we send in Owl with a quick Air Slash and one-hit KOs Scorvillain. Owl then gets off an Extra Sentry onto Arvin's next Pokemon of Garganolf before falling to a super effective Stone Edge. Pookie then comes out with a Terra boosted Crunch, bringing Garganolf into the yellow while they set up a Stealth Rock. Another Crunch then finishes him off. Toedscruel is their next Pokemon out and unfortunately goes for a Spore, as Pookie goes for a Sucker Punch, causing Sucker Punch to miss and Pookie to fall asleep. With the next two turns Pookie stays asleep and unfortunately is then knocked out by two Power Whips. Birdo was the next up, who on entry flew up into the sky and one-shots Toedscruel as they come down the next turn. As Cloyster comes out next, we exchange a Fly and a Flail for a few liquidations. We manage to bring them down to half before Birdo is knocked out. With a single discharge, Not Pikachu then comes in to finish off the remainder of Cloyster's health. Now for Arvin's final Pokemon of Mabosif. I can't pronounce half the new Pokemon, so I probably said that wrong. As they terrestrialize the Dark, we get off a discharge, dealing almost half damage before we fall to a Terra boosted Crunch. Not Pikachu's ability of Static does proc though, causing Mabosif to be paralysed, despite taking the KO. To finish the job, we send out Laporg, who seals the deal with a couple of headbutts, taking a crunch in the process, leaving them with only 5 HP, before the final headbutt KOs Mabosif and ends the battle. Arvin has been defeated, and the story arc of the Path of Legends has been completed. Before we are able to reach Area 0, we still need to recruit some new members for our team, and that means finishing off the other story arcs. And the next one on our list is Starfall Street. It's now time to make our way back to the academy to stop the Team Star's main big boss. Before we are able to make it to the courtyard where we are waiting to take on the boss, we first have to take on Clive, who turns out to be none other than Director Calvin. Who would have ever known? Anyway, our first battle against him, well, it was a flop. We do make it to their final Pokemon and bring them down to about half, but with a few misplaced moves and switches meant that we didn't have enough damage to finish off the remainder of the fight. So with a better team comp and an idea of how their team actually works, we go back in for round 2. They start off the battle with a Oranguru and hit Pokey with a Yawn, but returning with a Crunch one-shots the Oranguru. Abomasnow is next up, who sets up an Aurorel, while Pokey goes for a Fire Fang, dealing almost half health before falling asleep thanks to the Yawn. A Blizzard then comes Pokey's way, bringing him down to 43 HP, but luckily we only have a 1-turn sleep, waking up and another Fire Fang brings Abomasnow into the red. A Wood Hammer then KOs Pokey next turn. Charger then finishes him off with an X-Scissor, and Gyarados is out next. Charger gets off a Spark, dealing almost half health before falling to a Stone Edge, but Not Pikachu then comes out to finish the job with a 4 times super effective discharge. Poltergeist is Calvin's next Pokemon out, and a crit discharge from Not Pikachu brings them into the red. But we are hit in return by a Shadow Ball, also bringing Not Pikachu to red. It doesn't matter, as outspeeding Not Pikachu finishes them off with another discharge. As a Moongus comes out, we send a Wild Charge their way, dealing a small amount of damage before we are taken out by a Giga Train in return. Owl then manages to finish off Amogus with an Air Slash and an Extra Sentry, only being hit by a not very effective Giga Train in return, dealing minimal damage. Now for their final Pokemon of Skeleurge. In order to stop their Terra boosted Torch Song from sweeping our whole team, we Terrestrialize Owl into a Dragon type, to both stop the use of Torch Song and for the resistance it provides. Hitting an Air Slash deals about a third of their health, while Torch Song returns barely scratching Owl. Another Air Slash brings Skeleurge down to below half, and causing a flinch stops them from attacking this turn. Another Air Slash then leaves them with a sliver of health remaining, while a Shadow Ball leaves Owl at 25. And all it takes is one more Air Slash and Skeleurge is defeated. And we come out the victor of the battle. Director Calvin has been defeated, and with that we are able to proceed forward to take on the big Team Star boss. Now waiting inside the courtyard is the big boss, who is none other than the shy girl we met right at the start of the game of Penny. The final showdown of the Team Star boss now begins, and well, for the final boss it's a pretty easy fight against her whole team of evolutions. They start off with Umbreon and us with Owl. A couple of Moonblasts is all it takes to take down the Umbreon, only being hit by a Dark Post which barely tickles Owl in the progress. As Jolteon comes out, we Terrestrialize into a Dragon type to remove our Electric type weakness. While they miss their first Thunder, we get off a free Extra Sentry. But we are hit next turn as we exchange a Moonblast for a Thunder, bringing them down into yellow. We set up a couple of roosts to bring Owl back into a comfortable amount of health, getting hit by some Thunders and Baby Doll Eyes in the process, before finishing off Jolteon with an Air Slash. Unfortunately, one of the Thunders does inflict Paralyzation onto Owl, halving our speed stat. Vaporeon is out next, who hits Owl with an Aurora Beam, but Owl hangs on, hitting an Air Slash in return, dealing a little bit of damage before they fall to another Aurora Beam the next turn. It's now Not Pikachu's turn, who with a single discharge wipes out Vaporeon. Flareon is next up. Going for a dig, we miss an incoming Fire Blitz and pop up next turn, dealing over half of their damage. But this time the Fire Blitz connects, knocking Not Pikachu out. But at the same time the recall damage also knocks out Flareon. Knowing Leafeon will be next up, we send out Charger. Leafeon hits a Baby Doll Eyes, lowering Charger's attack speed, but despite that, X-Scissor still brings him down to a quarter health. Leafeon then hits an X-Scissor themselves, but Charger holds on strong with just being above half health. Returning with our own X-Scissor, Leafeon falls. All that is left is Penny's final and ace Pokemon of Sylveon. We set up a dig as they miss a Terra boosted Moonblast, which upon popping up deals a small amount of chip damage before Charger falls to a Moonblast. To clean up, we send out Birdo, who hits a super effective Steel Wing, leaving Sylveon at just a quarter health remaining. They return with another Moonblast, but it wasn't enough as Birdo holds strong and finishes him off next turn with one final Steel Wing. With Sylveon now down, Penny has been defeated, and Team Star has been stopped for good. We then learn more about why Team Star was created in the first place and what happened when Penny disappeared from the group, followed by a happy reunion of all the bosses from each base meeting up with Penny, and that's the end of the second story arc, the completion of Starfall Street. It's now time for Victory Road. The Victory Road story arc, and all we have left to do is take on the Elite Four and Champion. Before we are able to tackle the Elite Four members, we have to pass the entrance exam, which is pretty straightforward, just answer a bunch of questions about our journey and what gyms we had to face along the way, correctly, and once we pass, we are free to take them on. Rika is the first member of the Elite Four, and a ground type master. The fight starts off with Pookie versus Wishcash. A Sucker Punch deals over half damage to Wishcash's health as they miss a muddy water. Another Sucker Punch and Wishcash falls. Camerupt is out next, and Pokey hits a crunch, bringing them straight into red. Camerupt returns with a Fire Blast, leaving Pokey on 52 HP, but another crunch from Pookie knocks them out. Rika's Dolphin is next in line. A Sucker Punch deals about a quarter of their health, while they return fire with an Earthquake, finishing off Pookie. Lapork is next on the stage, who hits a headbutt, bringing Dolphin to a third health remaining. A crit Earthquake from Dolphin then brings Lapork to 34 HP, but it doesn't matter as another headbutt knocks him out next turn. Dugtrio is next out, who outspeeds and hits an Earthquake, knocking out Lapork. To take revenge, we send out Birdo, who we terrestrialize into normal, and fly up into the sky while Dugtrio sets up the stand. They then miss an Earthquake while we are up high, and we come down on them, knocking them down with a single fly. Now for Rita's ace of Clopsire. Clopsire goes for a protect as we go up and fly. Coming back down, we bring them to just above health, and they return with a Terra boosted Earthquake, bringing Birdo to 52 HP remaining. But thanks to that, we go for a Terra boosted Flail, which finishes off Clopsire, winning us the fight, and the first member of the Elite Four is down. 3 more to go. Next up is Poppy, the Steel type master, and despite being a small child, the fight is a tough one, failing our first 2 attempts and the third being a struggle. We start off the fight with Lapork versus Coppergeria. I'm gonna pronounce a load of Pokemon wrong again, so I apologise in advance. Outspeeding, we set up a dig while they miss a Heavy Slam. Coming back up, we one-hit KO them thanks to a crit. Next out comes Corviknight, and our first headbutt causes them to flinch. Another headbutt then chips away some more health, and then they set up an Iron Defense. One more headbutt brings Corviknight just to above half as they one-shot Lapork with a body press. Not Pikachu then comes out to finish off Corviknight with a single discharge. Poppy's next Pokemon out is Bronzong. A discharge from Not Pikachu brings them down to half, and also causes paralysation. Unfortunately, the Bronzong fights through and knocks out Pikachu with a swift Earthquake. It's now Pookie's time to shine, and a Terra boosted Sucker Punch makes short work of the remainder of Bronzong's health. Next out comes their Magnezone, who sets up a Light Screen while we go for a Terra boosted Crunch, bringing them down to red. A Flash Cannon then comes Pookie's way, bringing them to 60 HP, but one more crunch finishes off Magnezone. Now for Poppy's ace of Tinkatongue. A Terra boosted Sucker Punch brings them to a third health remaining before they finish off Pookie with a single play rough. Owl is next up, but barely manages to scratch Tinkatongue with an Air Slash before falling themselves. To finish off the job, we send out Birdo, who swoops in and takes care of the rest of Tinkatongue's health with a swift fly. Poppy has been defeated, and the second member of the Elite Four has been defeated. 2 out of 4. Larry is back once more, this time as the third member of the Elite Four. This time around, he is a flying type master compared to being a normal type master as gym leader. Larry is a pretty easy battle, with Not Pikachu being able to dispatch of his first 2 Pokemon with a couple of discharges, before falling to Arteria, but not without doing a fair amount of damage to them as well. We send out Lapork to take their place, who hits a flamethrower dealing a small fraction of health before they are taken down, Arteria with a headbutt. Next out is Orichalceo, who exchanges revolution dances for our headbutts before Lapork falls and Orichalceo is left with just below half health remaining. I'm pretty sure I just said Orichalceo, which is an ore in Terraria, but oh well. Pookie then comes in and a single Sucker Punch finishes them off. Flamigo is their final Pokemon, and a Sucker Punch from Pookie brings them down to half health, but they return fire with a super effective close combat. We then send out Charger, but unfortunately they don't get a chance to move before they are one shot by a super effective Terra boosted Brave Bird. So to finish them off, we send out Birdo, who once again flies up, swoops down, and Flamigo is out for the count. Larry, Elite Four member number 3, has been defeated. Only one more to go. Now for the final member of the Elite Four, Hansel. And just like most of the other games, he is a master of the Dragon type. Our first couple attempts end in failures, but our third is a different story. The battle begins with Not Pikachu facing against Noivern. Noivern does outspeed, hitting a Dragon Pulse, dealing most of Not Pikachu's health, but we return with Discharge, dealing half of their health in return. Since we can't survive another hit, we go for a Quick Attack, for that little bit of extra chip damage before we fall to another Dragon Pulse. Next out is Lapork, who takes a Super Fang, dealing half damage, but is able to finish off Noivern with a single headbutt. On their side, Dragolich, I don't know how to pronounce that, is next out. Going for a dig, Lapork avoids an incoming Sludge Bomb and then pops up, bringing them down to just above red. This time Sludge Bomb does connect and brings Lapork down to 25 HP, but it isn't enough as a single headbutt then finishes him off. Flapple is Hansel's next Pokemon, who outspeeds and finishes off Lapork with a single Dragon Rush. To take their place, we send out Charger, who is unable to do anything before they also fall to Dragon Rush because the first one causes them to flinch. So this time we go for Birdo, who does outspeed and flies up, dodging a Dragon Rush and then comes down and one-hit KOs Flapple. Haxorus. Flying brings them down to half, and with a crit Rock Tomb brings Birdo into red. It also lowers our speed. No longer outspeeding, Birdo is finished off by a Crunch. We then bring in Pokey for a Terra boosted Sucker Punch who finishes off Haxorus. It's now time for Hassel's final and ace Pokemon of Baxcalibur. Terra boosted Sucker Punch deals about half of their health, while they return with a Terra boosted crit Glaive Rush, knocking out Pookie. It's now up to our final Pokemon of Owl, and they do not disappoint as a super effective Moonblast ends the battle just like that. Hansel has been defeated and the Elite Four has been beaten. All that is left now is the champion of Gita. With the Elite Four defeated, it's now time to take on the champion. And it is a challenge. Failing attempt after attempt, we eventually hit the right combination of moves and when we should make use of each of our Pokemon. But yeah, the battle begins. Getter sends out Esparia and we send out Pookie. Right off the bat, we boost our Dark type by Terastallizing into Dark, outspeeding and hit a Sucker Punch to one-shot Espinavia. Next up is Go-Go, and we swap into Owl while they set up a Bulk Up. Air Slash then deals a fair amount of damage to Go-Go and also causes them to flinch, letting us get off another Air Slash next turn, KOing them without taking any damage in return. King Gambit's turn. Owl chips away a little bit of their health with a Moonblast before falling to a super effective Stone Edge. Lapork is up next, who outspeeds, setting up a dig, avoiding a Kowtow Cleave. Coming up next turn, the super effective dig bites away a fair amount of damage to King Gambit. We are unfortunately hit by a Kowtow Cleave this turn, but Lapork hands on strong with 66 HP. Another dig from Lapork and King Gambit is down. Avalugg is their next Pokemon up, and Lapork starts chipping away at their health with a Double Edge before falling to an Earthquake. Sending out Charger, we hit an X-Scissor, dealing about half of Avalanche's remaining health as we get hit by an Avalanche in return. But Charger holds on strong with 18 HP remaining. Another X-Scissor then finishes off Avalugg. Vivelza is their penultimate Pokemon, who hits an Aqua Jet and wipes out Charger before they are able to do anything. Not Pikachu then comes in, outspeeding and one-hit KOs Vivelza with a single Discharge. Now for their final and ace Pokemon of Glimmora. Not Pikachu hits a Discharge, dealing about half of their health before we fall to an Earth Power. Birdo is then next up, who hits a Steel Wing, bringing them down to red, before getting knocked out by a super effective Terra boosted Terra Blast. Pookie is all that remains on our side, but it's all we need as a Terra boosted Sucker Punch finishes off the remainder of Glamora's health, knocking them out and winning us the battle. The champion has been defeated and we are now recognised as a new champion within the Paldean region. But this is not the end of the story arc just yet. With the champion now defeated and us becoming one of Paldea's new champions, to finish off the story arc there is still one more fight we have to win, and that is against Nomura. Meeting her back at the centre of Metagoza, we enter one final battle to prove who is the strongest of the two of us. Well, our first battle is unsuccessful, so I guess they're the stronger of the two of us. But that doesn't mean we can't try again. Returning to take them on once more, we start the battle off with a Pork against their Lycanroc. A Stone Edge comes our way, dealing over half damage while we burrow underground to prepare a dig. While underground, Lycanroc sets up a Stealth Rock, while we come back up, leaving them with just a sliver of red health left. Luckily they missed their next Stone Edge, so we get off another free dig for the KO. Pawmalt is their next Pokemon out, who outspeeds and finishes off Lapork with a close combat. We then go into Birdo, Terrastalizing to remove our electric type weakness as we outspeed, fly up and come down on them next turn for the KO. Nomura's Earthworm is next into the field and we switch into Charger, getting hit by a body press in the process, which barely tickles us. A Crunch then deals about a third of Earthworm's health while they return fire with an Iron Tail, leaving us just surviving on 2 HP. Another Crunch then brings them down to yellow, reducing their defense stat in the process, and Charger manages to avoid the incoming Iron Tail, letting us get off another Crunch, leaving Earthworm what looks like just to be 1 HP before we fall to a Rock Blast. Pookie then jumps in to finish them off with a Sucker Punch. The Dunsparce is next onto the field, and a Sucker Punch deals over half damage while their Hyper Drill in return brings Pookie down into the yellow. Another Sucker Punch then finishes off the Dunsparce. Goodra is their next Pokemon out, and once more Sucker Punch does its job, dealing 3/4 of their health before Pookie falls to an incoming Dragon Pulse. Coming in to finish off the job, Owl hits a Moonblast to KO Goodra. Now for Nomura's final Pokemon of... oh god. Quaquavilia? Yeah, the duck final starter. I've got no clue. Owl's first Air Slash brings them to just above half and causes a flinch. Another Air Slash brings them to just above red, while Owl is hit by an Ice Spinner in return, but they hold on strong with just 29 HP remaining. And it is now all over for them as another Air Slash finishes off their Pokemon and Nomura is defeated, proving that we are the stronger of the two, and with that the Victory Road story arc has been completed. With all 3 story arcs now completed, we are finally able to make our way to Area 0 and take on the final story arc of Pokemon Violet of The Way Home. Making our way to the research station above Area 0, we meet up with Arvin, Nomura and Penny to finally make our way down into Area 0 and help out Professor Turo with the problem that has occurred down there. Visiting each research station, we find out more and more information about what happened down here and fight different forms of Paradox Pokemon who ended up in our way until we eventually make it to the bottom and reach the final research station. It turns out Professor Turo died a while back, helping Miraidon, who we have had our adventure with since pretty much the start of the game, and we have been talking to an AI version whenever we've been talking to them. It turns out the Paradox machine that was created has started to malfunction, spitting out too many Paradox Pokemon and, if not stopped, could cause some severe harm to the Paldean region. So AI Turo has requested our help to turn it off. However, in order to do so, they will be forced to do whatever they can to stop us, resulting in us needing to beat them in a Pokemon battle. And so, it begins. The battle begins with Iron Moth versus Lapork. 2 digs is all it takes to bring them down, only getting hit by a sludge bomb in the process, dealing about a half of our health. Iron Hands is next out, hitting us with a fake out, causing us to flinch that turn. Going for a dig brings Iron Hands to just above half, but they finish off Lapork with a super effective Drain Punch, restoring some of their health in the process. Next on our side is Owl, hitting a Moonblast bringing them down to a sliver of red health. Owl is then hit by a Thunder Punch, but they manage to hold on. Another Moonblast then finishes off Iron Hands. Iron Thorns is Churo's next Pokemon, whom we hit with a Moonblast bringing them down to just above half before Owl falls to another Thunder Punch. To seek revenge, Pookie is up with a Terra boosted Sucker Punch bringing them down to red, while a Brick Rake in return also sends us into the red. Another Sucker Punch then finishes off Iron Thorns. We then hit another Sucker Punch on their next Pokemon of Iron Jugulus, dealing almost half damage before we fall to an incoming Air Slash. Not Pikachu then comes out to finish them off with a super effective Discharge. Iron Bundle is next up, who sets up the snow with a Snowscape, but they also fall to a super effective Discharge. Churo's final Pokemon is Iron Valiant. A Rick Break one hits not Pikachu, but the ability of Static inflicts Paralization onto the Iron Valiant. Outspeeding with Birdo, I'm not actually sure if them being paralysed would have had an effect on this or not, but we fly up into the sky and come crashing down on them next turn for the KO. Iron Valiant is defeated, winning us the battle, or at least that's what it seems. Despite seeming to win the battle, the machine has not given up, and we once again have to take on AI Turo. However, this time we are locked out of the ability to use our own Pokeballs. We eventually figure out that the only Pokemon we can actually use in this situation is Miraidon, so it becomes a battle of our Miraidon versus theirs. I don't actually think you can lose this battle, but it does look very close as we are left with 1 HP. With the Miraidon defeated, AI Turo has been defeated and the Paradox machine has been turned off and destroyed. With that, the Paldean region has been saved, and we have beaten the game. Pokemon Violet has been completed using only Route 1 Pokemon. So the answer to the question, can we complete Pokemon Violet using only Route 1 Pokemon, is yes. Yes we can. Although we did have to level up to max. So with that, that is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, a like, comment and subscription would be a great way to show it, and it really does help out the video a lot. We also do have a membership button now, so if you wanted to show your support even more, there is the option there. You get videos 24 hours earlier than everyone else, and a few other perks to say the least. But anyway, thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one.